A lot of scepticism in the chamber when David Lidington was going through this proposed instrument that's being drafted. We're, of course, waiting for the advice of the Attorney-General as well, and also a lot of scepticism from the press gallery as well. Does anything meaningfully changed from what you've heard?
No, quite frankly, not very much. I mean, it's very clear that Theresa May didn't want to say the obvious, which is that not a single word has changed in the withdrawal agreement. What you have now is a supplement to the withdrawal agreement, which lays out a potential arbitration mechanism where hypothetically the UK could, under its own interpretation, seek a unilateral exit from the backstop, but that would require essentially sort of legally interpreting things like best endeavors and somehow the UK having to prove that the EU was acting in bad faith. This is incredibly difficult to do in any legal circumstances. So at the bottom of this, I regard this as a legally binding fig leaf that I strongly doubt that will be enough for Theresa May to win the vote in the House of Parliament.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is it a politically binding fig leaf that's going to be enough to give her a little bit more leverage and potentially, she says this is exactly what Parliament asked her to come back with?
Well, I mean, I think basically the vast majority of the members of her own parliament that voted against her deal the last time said, no, we need material changes to the withdrawal agreement. She has manifestly not achieved that. And I think just simply also it is clear that the Irish government has signed off on this. They're quite happy with it. I think that probably will indicate that the DUP in Northern Ireland will be quite unhappy with it. And if they're unhappy and unlikely to vote for it, I can't see a way for Theresa May to find a majority here. And I think therefore it's important to note also what Jean-Claude Juncker said is that there will be no more negotiations based on this.
Right.
So we're
Exactly. He's saying it is this deal or Brexit may not happen at all. He's saying there will be no third chance on this Brexit verdict. So what's next then?
Well, I mean, I think what is next is whatever happens in the House of Commons tomorrow, we'll probably have, as I said, my baseline will be that she loses the vote. And then it becomes important because there is a theory that says that, well, if she doesn't lose the vote, by very much, maybe she can come back for a third time after the EU Council on the 23rd. But I think Jean-Claude Juncker clearly closed that door. So what we will see is that if she loses tomorrow, there'll be the vote scheduled for Wednesday that will probably back no deal or oppose no deal. And then on Thursday, we have the scheduled vote for the potential extension of Article 50, which will be the big vote, of course. I predict that will pass. But the big question then becomes, what conditions will the EU 27 put on approving such an extension? Because I think you're going to look at quite a long list of conditions all of a sudden if Theresa May doesn't have her majority for the withdrawal agreement.
Prime Minister May also saying that Attorney General will come to his own decision on the deal. Given what you've told us that really there isn't much of a change here, what can we expect?
Well, I mean, we will have to see whether Mr. Cox is a legal scholar or a politician. As I said, I think from a legal point of view, it is very difficult for me to see a material change. But obviously, this is last chance saloon. The vote tomorrow will be very important. And clearly, if he were to change his legal advice, it would be very helpful potentially for Theresa May and may get her close to a majority. But as I said earlier, I ultimately do not believe this is going to be enough.
Jacob, if you take a look at the various, flowchart options here, no deal, a messy Brexit, a short-term extension, a second referendum, a longer extension of Article 50, what seems most likely from here on in?
Well, I think it's very important that if you read the letter that Jean-Claude Juncker referred to, that he sent to EU Council President Tusk, it says very explicitly that unless the UK holds European elections in May, they're only going to have a short extension of Article 50. And I cannot imagine a political scenario where the UK is willing to actually participate in the European elections in May. So I think all the ideas of a long extension that you hear in many Remainers in London to basically sort of give time for a second referendum and all these things, I don't think that's very credible. I think the probability of that is very low. At the same time, I also continue to believe that there is no majority for no deal in the British Parliament. So I also actually believe that the chances of no deal remains low, and by low I mean less than 10%. And then, therefore, my baseline remains that the withdrawal agreement passes, but probably accompanied by a softer Brexit political declaration with large support from the Labour Party, which basically will entail a split in the Tory party over this. I think that, to me now, looks as the most likely way forward.
In the meantime, we are seeing the British pound now fluctuating, sitting at around 132 at the moment. Of course, also the talks were focused on how they're going to negotiate their future trade relationship. So when it comes to the economies of the UK and the EU and future partnerships and cooperation, where do we stand as the Brexit process unfolds?
No, I mean, as I said, I think the arrow points to a closer relationship in the long run. I think we are looking at something that at the end of the day, whether this is decided before Brexit actually happens or as part of these future negotiations, I think you are looking at a permanent customs union. I think you are looking at a de facto membership of the internal market, because anything else will be devastating to large parts of the UK economy. And you are now starting to see that effect. Very low levels of corporate investment, companies relocating and the like. And that's the kind of development that in the long run, no UK government can afford to ignore.
Jacob, in fact, just to wrap up the conversation, we heard from one of the Bank of England policymakers earlier this week, Jonathan Haskell, saying that a withdrawal agreement is not going to be enough to get foreign investors and broadly investors back to the table. Is there really this threat of longer-term uncertainty that's still going to be at play, and where does that leave the BOE?
Well, I mean, I think the BOE basically has the same conundrum as it has always had. It has to plan for the worst possible outcome, which, of course, is no deal, because that probability has not been eliminated. And in that situation, the Bank of England has one basic choice. Do we basically try to stabilize the economy, the GDP, the unemployment rate? That means going very, very easy. And easing monetary further, or do we try to stabilize inflation, which would, in the face of what is a likely significant drop in the pound, in a no-deal scenario, would entail raising interest rates? That is the conundrum facing the Bank of England, and I don't think that has changed in the last couple of hours.